Hey everybody, David Alter here for Rink Wide Toronto, presented by Bodog, Canada's home for casino games and sports odds where everyone goes to play. And tonight, the Toronto Maple Leafs are back home right here at Scotiabank Arena to host the St. Louis Blues, who they played just about a week ago. And this will have a bit of a different look for a number of reasons. The only thing that will be kind of similar, though, maybe not the only thing, but one of the main things is that Ilya Samsonov will again take on the St. Louis Blues, but it will be at home, and he will look to be in sole possession of the franchise record for most consecutive home wins to start a season. He's tied with Bruce Gamble for that record at 9-0-0. A win will put him at 10-0-0, and he picked up the win against the Blues in his last start on December 26th, although Ilya Samsonov is kind of looking for a better performance. So 3 starts ago, he was actually leading the league in save percentage, but in his last 3 starts, even though 2 of them were wins, the save percentages have been in the 800s. So Samsonov certainly looking to kind of get his game back and have a better showing, and perhaps against the St. Louis Blues team, who are missing Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko, who both played in that previous meeting. That's going to create a whole different dynamic. But for the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is a big start for a long stretch at home here. They only have 4 road games in the month of January, and the furthest trip is Boston. So they will be here. They will be settled for the most part after a lot of road travel. I know personally, because Rink-Wide Toronto was there for all of it. It should be an interesting setup for the Maple Leafs as they can work with their skill staff, kind of recover a little bit better, and do some things that maybe they just don't have the same kind of access to on the road. Rasmus Sandin will be back in the lineup after he had a scary neck injury here on December 20th at Scotiabank Arena. Kind of said that he had a bit of blurred vision that caused him to kind of come out. It seemed like it was innocent enough, but when the blurred vision started happening, they pumped the brakes, and he was pulled out of the game as a precautionary reason. They've been waiting to kind of find the right fit for when to put him back into the lineup. And so what they've done is they will put him on the third pair with Timothy Liljegren, as both guys will be reunited, and you're going to see some deep pairs that will be reminiscent of what this team looked like earlier in the season. TJ Brodie moves back to the right side with Morgan Rielly, and that was the defense pair for the first 9 games of the season, and that's the optimal look for the Maple Leafs, is putting TJ Brodie on his offside in that first pair, and it's probably the most resembling of a first pair defense that we've seen all season, even though they've trotted out Giordano Hall and different kind of first pairs. When you look at the minutes, it hasn't looked like that. So when they actually roll out the line rushes before the game, the first pair will actually be the first pair for the first time in quite some time. The Leafs will continue to roll with the 5 forwards on the power play, which sees Mitch Marner on the point. Interesting to note that Sheldon Keefe did mention in an availability the other day that had the Leafs had a power play in the third period while they were leading the other night, they probably would have reverted back to the 4 forwards and 1 defenseman, likely Morgan Rielly being back into that spot. But because the 5 forwards have worked out well, they haven't really given up a goal against. They've had some scary moments, but they haven't given up a goal against yet. And they cashed in the last game with Michael Bunting there in the bumper scoring. So they're going to continue to roll with that. And it's really an evolution of Mitch Marner just continuing to do some things on the defensive side. We saw in the preseason and then in the first few games of the regular season, in situations where the Leafs were in need of a goal, they have enough trust in Mitch Marner to put him in a defensive position. There was a comparison kind of made to guys like Cale Makar, who are kind of rover type of guys who, even though they play defense, have the full 200-foot game that you can really throw them anywhere. And it looks like they're continuing to kind of evolve there. And I remember on the road trip, Mitch Marner kind of said that he actually liked playing defense a lot as a kid, but because his backwards skating wasn't as good as everything else he can do, he decided early in his playing career that forward was the way to go. But he certainly loved playing the position. He likes being able to see everything else in front of him. And that's why that experiment of playing on the defensive side of things, whether it's at even strength or in this case at the 5 forward spot where he's on the point, is why it's worked out so well, and the Leafs will continue to experiment with that. Carl Dahlstrom, remember in preseason, he had a pretty significant shoulder injury. Well, for the last couple of weeks or so, he's been skating. He's been around the team before morning skate here started. He has been skating around and doing the drills because of the nature of his injury. He can do that. He had that upper body shoulder ailment. Sheldon Keefe says he's still a ways away, but certainly on the mind of someone he did want to use, because when the Leafs were going through those defensive injuries, which seemed like a long time ago, but really wasn't, Carl Dahlstrom would have been that go-to guy that they would have used in that position, like the way that he played for the Leafs in that situation for them last season. And so he's certainly on the mend, but still probably a couple months. It was a 6-month timeline when they announced his injury and the surgery that he had back in late September. So that's the look right here. Myself and Rob Wong, who is back, will have the post-game show. Make sure you rate and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms to Rink Wide Toronto, presented by Bodog, Canada's choice for free casino games, poker tips, and sports odds. Rink Wide Toronto, pre-game, post-game, every game.